Okay, now you understand how to do classification with KNN. There is another variation of KNN where you can do regression. So in the beginning, I talked about supervised learning, and as two specific applications of supervised learning, I talked about classification and regression. Now we've just talked about classification, and we'll look at another application of supervised learning, which is regression. So regression is basically predicting a value, something you want to forecast a value. For example, the price of a house given certain input data, the time it came on the market, the size, the neighborhood, and then you want to have the algorithm predict how much is this going to be worth. You might also want to predict the rating for a movie. If you're Netflix and you want to produce original content, you might want to predict how often is this going to be watched. You might want to predict the temperature or some other value. So we don't want to choose among different classes, cat or dog, or spam or ham. We want to predict a certain value. So this is one application where we need a regression algorithm. Of course, there are various ways you can go wrong when you do prediction. You can apply these algorithms, but you have to be sure that what you're trying to predict actually makes sense based on the data that you have. Otherwise, you're going to predict values and they're not going to be very useful in real life. So there is an adaptation of KNN that does regression instead of classification. It works very similar to before, but with a small difference. So let's again look at the special case where k equals 1. In this case, we have two-dimensional data, the points here, and we want to predict based on one x input value, the y output value. So the blue dots are the ones where we already have data points. So these are the points in our training data. And now for a new sample, these 3 samples here, we want to predict for a given x, what is the output value y. So yeah, this could be some input value and you want to predict something here. It could be a price, could be a rating, doesn't really matter. Depends on the data that you have. So what do we do? For this data point here, we're going to look at the k equals 1 nearest neighbor. So if k equals 1, it's again the closest neighbor. So for this point here, for this x, we're going to look at the value closest in the x dimension. And this is going to be this one here. And now we are going to assign the output, the y value of this point to the new sample. Likewise here, we're going to look at the surrounding points. Let's say this one is the closest, then the output, the predicted value for this one is going to be the same as for this one. And same for the third point here. So note the difference to before. We have n-dimensional vectors. We are going to use n-1 dimensions for the neighborhood classification, for finding the closest neighbor. And then the final dimension is the predicted output. So this was the special case with k equals 1. Usually you have a larger value of k. And then again, like before, let's say for k equals 3, what are we going to do? We're going to find for one point the k closest neighbors. So here, again, for one value in the x dimension, we're going to look at the 3 closest ones. Let's say it's these 3 points here. And then the predicted output is going to be the average value of these 3 points. Likewise here, going to look at the 3 closest neighbors, and each time now we are going to average the y value of these 3 points, and this is our predicted output value. So here you can already see that this kind of prediction regression algorithm has a limitation. It only works if you stay inside the range of your training data. Yeah, if you want to predict something outside, this doesn't really work. Then you need a different kind of regression algorithm. But for examples like here, where you have a large number of points collected, house prices, movie ratings, and you can stay inside that data set, then you can use it to predict a new value. And this is what we're going to do on the next task on the worksheet. And if you're interested more in what Netflix is doing with machine learning, this video here is just a quick high-level overview. And if you go into the channel, it's the Netflix data channel. There are also videos where they have a lot more detail on how their data analysis platform works. And well, you can see if machine learning, data science is something that you would find interesting to work in. So have fun with the worksheet, with the machine learning examples, and I will see you back for machine learning evaluation.